Picture this: you're walking through the ruins of an ancient city, your footsteps tracing paths laid down thousands of years ago. But there's something strange, something almost too perfect about the way these streets curve, the way these temples rise from the earth. It's as if the entire city was designed by some unseen hand, following a secret blueprint whispered by the universe itself. That's because it was, beneath the dust of time, hidden in the angles of every stone and the alignment of every monument, lies a forgotten language, a language of shapes, ratios, and patterns so profound, it shaped the destiny of civilizations. This is the power of sacred geometry, the invisible force that turned cities into celestial maps, temples into cosmic mirrors, and human ambition into divine artistry. From the moment our ancestors first looked up at the stars, they sensed a hidden order to the cosmos, a harmony woven into the fabric of reality, and so they set out to recreate that harmony on Earth. The pyramids of Giza weren't just tombs, they were mathematical love letters to the heavens, their dimensions encoding secrets we're still unraveling today. The Parthenon's columns didn't just hold up a roof, they sang in perfect golden ratios, echoing the proportions of nature itself. Even the winding streets of Varanasi, the labyrinthine canals of Angkor Wat, they weren't accidents of history. They were deliberate, calculated acts of devotion where every curve and corner whispered the same truth. The universe speaks in geometry, and our ancestors were fluent in its language. So what happened to that wisdom? Why do our modern cities, with their sterile grids and towering steel, feel so disconnected from that ancient magic? The answer lies in a story buried deeper than any ruin, a story of sacred knowledge passed down through millennia, encoded in stone, and then nearly lost to time. But today, we're going to unearth it. Together, we'll walk the hidden pathways of history, from the celestial clockwork of Teotihuacan to the fractal majesty of Islamic mosaics. We'll see how a single geometric symbol could shape an empire, how a circle could become a portal to the divine, and how the blueprint of the cosmos might still be hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to rediscover it. This isn't just a journey into the past, it's an invitation to see the world anew, to look at the cities around you and ask, what if they're still speaking to us? What if the shapes we've forgotten hold the key to a future we've yet to imagine? The truth is closer than you think. Long before compasses measured angles or calculators crunched numbers, ancient civilizations were already speaking the silent language of sacred geometry. This wasn't just math, it was a spiritual technology, a way of mapping the invisible order they believed pulsed through all things. Take the flower of life, one of the oldest and most universal geometric symbols. Found etched into the temples of Abydos in Egypt and carved into ancient Chinese artifacts, this intricate pattern of overlapping circles wasn't decorative. It was a blueprint. Mystics claimed it contained the very building blocks of reality, the shapes that galaxies, snowflakes, and even human DNA all seem to echo. And then there's the Vesica Piscis, that almond-shaped space where two circles overlap. To the Greeks, it symbolized the womb of creation, the intersection between heaven and earth. You'll find it hidden in Gothic cathedral windows, Buddhist mandalas, and even the fish symbol used by early Christians, proof that this geometric idea transcended cultures and epochs. But perhaps the most famous sacred ratio is the golden mean, that magical number roughly 1.618 that appears everywhere from the spiral of a nautilus shell to the proportions of the human face. The Egyptians used it to design the Great Pyramid, ensuring its slope matched the very curve of the earth. The Greeks called it the divine proportion, believing it held the secret to beauty and balance. Even today, studies show people instinctively prefer art and architecture that follows this ratio, as if our brains are hardwired to recognize its harmony. What's fascinating is how these patterns weren't just theoretical. Ancient builders didn't stumble upon them by accident. They wielded them like sacred tools. When a temple's doorway was framed by the golden rectangle, or a city's streets radiated in perfect symmetry, it wasn't for aesthetics alone. These choices were acts of devotion, attempts to mirror the cosmic order on Earth. The Hindu concept of Vastu Shastra, the Chinese practice of Feng Shui, even the Pythagorean belief in the music of the spheres, all shared this same conviction, that geometry was the hidden thread connecting the material world to something far greater. Consider the humble circle, a shape so simple yet so profound. To the ancients, it represented eternity, the infinite with no beginning or end. Stonehenge's towering monoliths form concentric rings aligned with the solstices, while Native American medicine wheels use the same circular logic to map the heavens. The circle wasn't just a shape, it was a portal, a way of touching the timeless. And when these circles stacked and intersected, forming the seed of life, the tree of life, they became something alchemical, a visual prayer for growth, connection, and transcendence. This reverence for geometric harmony wasn't confined to temples and symbols. It bled into the very way cities were conceived. The Mesopotamians built ziggurats as stairways to the gods, their stepped pyramids echoing the sacred mountains of myth. The Mayans arranged their observatories to capture the precise angle of Venus's journey across the sky. Everywhere you look, from the grid of Mohenjo-Daro to the celestial alignments of Teotihuacan, you see the same impulse to build not just shelters but echoes of the cosmos. Because to these cultures, geometry wasn't abstract, it was alive, a living force that could bless, protect, and even awaken those who understood its language. So why did these patterns hold such power? Maybe because they weren't invented, they were discovered. The Fibonacci sequence appears in sunflower seeds and hurricane spirals. The hexagon shapes honeycombs and basalt cliffs. Sacred geometry wasn't just human imagination. It was humanity recognizing a deeper order, a code written into the fabric of nature itself. And by weaving that code into their cities, our ancestors weren't just building, they were communing. They were trying to whisper back to the universe in a language older than words. The pyramids of Giza stand as silent witnesses to a civilization that saw numbers as divine. At first glance, they appear to be simple tombs for pharaohs, but look closer, every angle, every measurement tells a story. The Great Pyramid's sides align almost perfectly with the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, with an error margin of just a fraction of a degree. How did they achieve such precision without modern tools? Some researchers believe the Egyptians used the stars, particularly the circumpolar constellation of Ursa Minor, as their guide. The pyramid's arrangement even mirrors the belt stars of Orion, a constellation associated with Osiris, the god of rebirth. This wasn't random, it was intentional, a way of tethering the earthly realm to the heavens. Then there's the mystery of pi. If you take the Great Pyramid's perimeter and divide it by twice its height, you get a number startlingly close to pi, 3.14159. This mathematical constant, essential to circles and spheres, wasn't formally calculated until centuries later by the Greeks. Did the Egyptians stumble upon this by accident, or was it encoded deliberately? The pyramid's slope angle, 51.5 degrees, also corresponds to the golden ratios phi, a proportion revered in sacred geometry. These aren't coincidences. They're fingerprints of a knowledge system that blended math, astronomy, and spirituality into a unified science. beyond the pyramids, the entire landscape of ancient Egypt hums with geometric intent. The Temple of Karnak's columns are spaced in harmonic intervals, creating acoustic effects that amplify chants. The Sphinx, with its lion's body and human head, sits at an angle that aligns with the rising sun during the equinoxes. Even the Nile's flood cycles were predicted using geometric patterns in temple alignments. The Egyptians didn't just observe nature, they conversed with it, using geometry as their language. Perhaps most astonishing is the city of Heliopolis, now buried beneath modern Cairo. Its streets were laid out in concentric circles, mirroring the sun's path. Temples were positioned along ley lines, channels of earth energy some believe enhance spiritual connection. The Egyptians called it Iunu, the place of pillars, a nod to the sacred columns that once marked celestial gateways. Every stone, every avenue was a deliberate act of cosmic mimicry. What does this mean for us today? The pyramids challenge our assumptions about ancient technology. They suggest a sophistication beyond mere engineering, a world where architecture was liturgy and cities were prayers in stone. The next time you see an image of the pyramids, don't just see monuments. See a civilization that built bridges between dimensions, using geometry as their blueprint and the sky as their compass. Walk into the shadow of the Parthenon, and you'll feel it, the silent hum of perfection. Every column, every step seems to breathe with a rhythm older than time itself. That's because this temple isn't just stone, it's a mathematical hymn carved in marble. The Greeks didn't just build structures, they wove geometry into the very soul of their civilization. Take the Parthenon's facade. At first glance, its columns appear perfectly straight, but look closer. They actually curve slightly inward, a technique called entoses, designed to counter optical illusions and create the illusion of flawless symmetry. And then there's the golden ratio, that magical proportion of 1 to 1.618, which dictates the spacing between columns, the height of the pediment, even the relationship between the temple's length and width. It's the same ratio found in sunflowers and spiral galaxies, as if the Greeks were tapping into the universe's hidden blueprint. But the real magic lies in how they fused geometry with philosophy. Pythagoras, the man behind the famous theorem, didn't just see triangles as tools for measuring fields. He believed numbers were divine, the building blocks of reality. His followers, the Pythagoreans, swore oaths of secrecy around sacred symbols like the tetractys, a pyramid of 10 dots representing cosmic harmony. To them, the vibration of a plucked string wasn't just sound, it was mathematics made audible, proof that the universe sang in geometric harmonies. This idea bled into city planning. Athens wasn't haphazard. Its theaters curved in perfect acoustical arcs to amplify actors' voices, while temples like the Erechtheion were placed along ley lines, aligning with constellations and solstices. Even the Agora, the city's bustling heart, was laid out in harmonic proportions, turning public squares into living geometry. Plato took this further. At his academy, the doorway bore the inscription, "Let no one ignorant of geometry enter here." To him, geometric forms the perfect circle. The flawless triangle existed in a higher realm of ideals, and earthly shapes were mere shadows. His student Euclid codified this into Elements, a text that ruled mathematics for millennia. But perhaps the most striking example is Delphi, home of the famed oracle. The Temple of Apollo there wasn't randomly placed, it sat at the intersection of two geological faults, where ethylene gas seeped from the earth, a natural trance inducer. The priests knew this. They positioned the temple's aditon, the inner sanctum, directly over the fissure, using geometry to amplify both geological energy and spiritual experience. What's astonishing is how this geometric spirituality echoed beyond temples. The Greeks designed entire cities as microcosms of the cosmos. Rhodes was laid out in a radial pattern mirroring the sun's rays, while Miletus used a grid system based on Pythagorean principles. Even their pottery followed geometric rules. Amphory's curves matched the golden ratio, and mosaics hid complex tessellations. This wasn't decoration, it was devotion. The legacy: modern architects still mimic the Parthenon's proportions, from the U.S. Capitol to art museums. Neurologists now find that golden ratio shapes trigger pleasure centers in the brain. The Greeks didn't just invent geometry, they revealed its soul, proving that when numbers and beauty collide, the divine isn't far behind. Varanasi doesn't just sit on the banks of the Ganges, it dances with them. Every twist of its labyrinthine alleys, every step of its 84 ghats descending into the sacred waters, follows a hidden choreography of angles and alignments. This isn't urban sprawl, it's a mandala brought to life, a cosmic diagram etched into the earth. The city's layout mirrors the Sri Yantra, an ancient geometric symbol of divine feminine energy, with temples positioned like stars in a celestial constellation. Walk its streets at dawn and you'll notice something uncanny. The first light of the solstice doesn't just touch the city, it activates it, sliding down specific ghats in precise sequences, illuminating shrines like a celestial switchboard. The Kashi Vishwanath Temple, Varanasi's spiritual heart, sits at the center of this geometric web. Pilgrims circle it in concentric rings, retracing the same sacred circumambulation used for millennia. But here's what most miss. The temple's spire aligns with the pole star, while its inner sanctum lies directly beneath a ley line intersection, where Earth's magnetic fields are said to converge. Even the city's famous cremation ghats follow geometric logic. Manikarnika, where flames have burned continuously for centuries, is positioned at the exact midpoint of a north-south energy axis, believed to amplify the soul's release from the cycle of rebirth. Then there are the whispers of the Panchkroshi Yatra, a 50-mile pilgrimage route forming a perfect pentagram around Varanasi. Every 5 years, millions walk this path, their footsteps reinforcing what architects encoded in stone, that the city isn't just a place, but a mechanism for transformation. The ghats themselves are mathematical poetry. Their steps rise and fall in Fibonacci sequences, their curves mirroring the river's meanders with uncanny precision. Modern surveys reveal something astonishing. Key ghats align not just with solstices, but with the orbits of Jupiter and Saturn, planets revered in Vedic astrology as cosmic timekeepers. What does this mean for the millions who come here seeking moksha, liberation? The answer might lie in the city's oldest name, Kashi, the luminous one. In Hindu cosmology, light isn't just illumination, it's consciousness itself. By walking Varanasi's geometric grid, pilgrims aren't just moving through streets, they're traversing the layers of the universe, from earthly chaos to divine order. The city becomes a living yantra, a geometric device for focusing spiritual energy, where every turn is a meditation and every stone a mantra. Even the chaos, the bustling markets, the crowded alleys fits the pattern. Like the fractal branching of a tree, apparent disorder reveals deeper harmony to those who know how to look. Today's city planners could learn from Varanasi's ancient genius. In a world of sterile grids, here's a metropolis that breathes with its environment, where geometry serves not just function but transcendence. The next time you see a satellite image of Varanasi's serpentine streets, don't see a maze, see a sacred circuit board, still humming with the voltage of millennia. Rising from the Cambodian jungle like a mirage of stone, Angkor Wat isn't just a temple, it's a three-dimensional map of Hindu cosmology, those 5 iconic towers. They're more than architectural flair. Each one corresponds to a peak of Mount Meru, the mythical axis mundi where gods reside. But here's what most visitors miss. The entire complex is a precise scale model of the universe as described in ancient Vedic texts. The moats surrounding it aren't merely defensive, they mirror the cosmic oceans believed to encircle reality itself, while the concentric galleries represent the mountain ranges that tier the heavens. Step into the western entrance during the spring equinox, and you'll witness something extraordinary. The sun rises directly over the central tower, casting a beam of light through perfectly aligned corridors like a celestial key turning in a divine lock. Astronomers have discovered even deeper layers of intentionality. The temple's bas-reliefs aren't just art, they're cosmic calendars. The famous churning of the ocean of milk panel doubles as an astronomical diagram, with its 92 Asuras demons and 88 Devas gods, symbolizing the 92 days between solstices and 88 days between equinoxes. Even the temple's dimensions hold secrets. Its outer wall measures precisely 365 cubits long, 1 cubit for each day of the solar year, while the central tower's height matches the temple's diagonal base measurement in a perfect 1:2 ratio, sacred to both Hindu and Buddhist traditions. But the true genius lies in how Angkor Wat interacts with its environment. Recent LiDAR scans reveal the entire Angkor region was designed as a hydraulic mandala, with canals and reservoirs forming a vast geometric network that regulated water flow and, by extension, life itself, according to lunar cycles. The temple's reflection in its moats wasn't just picturesque. During full moons, it created a complete celestial map when viewed from specific vantage points, merging earthly and heavenly realms. This wasn't just sacred geometry, it was sacred engineering, where every brick served both practical and spiritual functions. Perhaps most astonishing is how the builders encoded movement into their design. Pilgrims walking the temple's galleries would experience a deliberate progression from chaotic battle scenes at ground level to serene celestial dances above, mirroring the soul's ascent from material confusion to enlightenment. Even the staircases play a role. Their steep 70-degree incline forces visitors to climb hands and knees, literally bowing toward the sacred center. Every element, from the fractal-like repetition of lotus motifs to the precise 45-degree angles of window lattices that filter sunlight into geometric patterns at dawn, was calibrated to transform architecture into an instrument of transcendence. What modern architects are only now rediscovering that buildings can shape consciousness, Angkor's designers knew intuitively. When you stand in the central sanctuary, surrounded by those 5 towers aligned to the cardinal directions plus the zenith, you're not just in a building. You're at the crossroads of earth and sky, where geometry becomes prayer and stone breathes with the rhythm of the cosmos. The Roman Empire didn't just conquer the ancient world, it organized it with geometric precision. Picture a legionary surveyor standing in an empty field, turning the groma, a simple cross-shaped instrument, to mark straight lines under the Mediterranean sun. This humble tool didn't just measure land, it imposed an invisible grid across 3 continents, from the olive groves of Spain to the deserts of Syria. Every new Roman city began with the same ritual, the plowing of the Sulcus Primigenius, a sacred furrow marking the north-south Cardo and east-west Decumanus streets. These axes weren't arbitrary, they aligned with solstice sunrises and the path of Venus, tying urban life to celestial rhythms. The result, cities like Timgad in Algeria, where even 2,000 years later, the grid remains so precise you could lay a modern architect's ruler over its streets. But Rome's geometric genius wasn't just practical, it was theological. The Pantheon's dome, still the world's largest unreinforced concrete dome after millennia, isn't just an engineering marvel. Its proportions form a perfect sphere, with the height from floor to oculus matching the dome's diameter. Stand beneath it at noon on the equinox, and sunlight strikes a bronze marker on the floor, transforming the temple into a sundial. This wasn't accidental. The oculus, that famous circular opening, frames different constellations throughout the year, turning the dome into a rotating planetarium. Even the coffered ceiling's indentations follow harmonic ratios, reducing the dome's weight while creating acoustic effects that amplify whispers to eerie clarity. The Romans took sacred geometry beyond single buildings. Their military camps, precursors to cities like London and Paris, were laid out as perfect squares divided into quadrants, mirroring the Etruscan templum, a celestial grid used for augury. When they rebuilt Rome after Nero's fire, they widened streets to precise multiples of 12 Roman feet, a number sacred to Jupiter. Their theaters, like the one in Orange, France, used semicircular designs calibrated to project actors' voices to every seat through geometric acoustics. Even their sewers followed sacred ratios. The Cloaca Maxima's arches echo the Vesica Piscis, that almond-shaped sacred symbol of intersection. What's often overlooked is how this geometry served imperial ideology. When Julius Caesar reformed the calendar, he didn't just fix timekeeping, he aligned Rome's yearly cycle with solar geometry, declaring himself the new divine axis. Augustus later placed obelisks across the city as solar markers, their shadows tracing political power across geometric pavements. The message was clear: just as gods ordered the cosmos, Rome ordered the world through sacred mathematics. Yet for all its rigidity, Roman geometry had flexibility. In hilly cities like Pompeii, the grid adapted to terrain, proving that sacred order wasn't about brute uniformity, but harmonious adaptation. Their aqueducts used slight parabolic curves, prefiguring calculus, to maintain water flow, while their mosaics hid complex fractal patterns in seemingly simple designs. This blend of precision and creativity might explain why Roman cities felt alive rather than sterile, why a gladiator in Gaul or a merchant in Carthage could walk streets that, though thousands of miles apart, shared the same geometric soul. The true testament to Rome's geometric vision, modern cities from New York to Barcelona still use variations of their grid, but few realize that when they walk Manhattan's numbered streets, they're treading the ghost of the Cardo, that ancient north-south line once drawn with a groma under a different sky. Rome proved that geometry wasn't just lines on parchment, it was the scaffolding of civilization itself. Standing at the northern end of Teotihuacan's Avenue of the Dead, you're not just looking down a road, you're gazing along an ancient celestial runway. This 2.5-mile-long thoroughfare doesn't just connect the Pyramid of the Moon to the Ciudadela complex. It points directly toward the spot where the Pleiades star cluster dips below the horizon on the same day each year. For the city's mysterious builders, this wasn't urban planning, it was cosmic choreography. The entire metropolis was laid out like a scaled-down solar system, with the Pyramid of the Sun positioned as its blazing center. At 216 feet tall, its base perimeter equals the number of days in the sacred Mayan Tzolk'in calendar, while its four sides align with startling precision to true north, south, east, and west. No laser tools required. But the real magic lies in how these monuments converse with each other. The Pyramid of the Moon, though smaller, sits higher in elevation, creating an optical illusion that makes it appear equal in size when viewed from the avenue below, a deliberate trick of sacred perspective. Step back further, and you'll notice the three main pyramids form a perfect isosceles triangle, their distances mirroring the orbital proportions of Mercury, Venus, and Earth. Even the smaller structures play their part. The Temple of Quetzalcoatl's 365 feathered serpent heads match Earth's yearly rotation, while its 9 levels echo the underworld's 9 realms in Mesoamerican belief. Archaeologists recently uncovered something even more astonishing. The entire city was built using a standardized unit of measurement called the Teotihuacan unit, roughly 32.5 inches. This wasn't arbitrary. It corresponds to the average stride length of a person 5 feet tall, blending human proportion with cosmic scale. Walk the avenue today, and your footsteps still resonate with that ancient rhythm. Every 81 units marking a significant astronomical alignment, every 540 units signaling a lunar cycle. The builders didn't just measure space, they encoded time into the very pavement beneath your feet. Perhaps most haunting is how Teotihuacan's geometry interacts with light. During the spring equinox, sunlight slants down the pyramid of the sun's western face in a cascading wave, creating the illusion of a serpent slithering downward, an effect replicated at Chichen Itza's El Castillo centuries later. At dawn on specific dates, shadows from the moon pyramid's platforms form perfect step triangles that align with hidden chambers below. Even the Ciudadela's sunken courtyard acts as a colossal sundial, its walls casting shadows that pinpoint solstices like celestial clock hands. Who were these master geometers? The answer remains elusive. Teotihuacan predates the Aztecs by a millennium, its original name and builders lost to time. But their legacy whispers through the stones. The city's grid isn't perfectly square. It's skewed 15.5 degrees east of north, an alignment some scholars believe mirrors the Milky Way's tilt above the horizon. Others suggest it corrected for magnetic declination, proving these ancients understood Earth's geophysical quirks long before modern science. What's undeniable is that every choice, every angle, every ratio was deliberate. Modern laser scans reveal even the residential compounds followed sacred ratios, their walls positioned to amplify sound during rituals. The pigments used in murals contain minerals that vibrate at frequencies matching sacred chants. This wasn't just a city designed to be lived in, it was engineered to be felt, a place where geometry tuned human experience to cosmic frequencies. When the Aztecs discovered these ruins centuries later, they named it Teotihuacan, the place where men become gods. Walking its geometric corridors today, you begin to understand why here mathematics wasn't just calculation. It was alchemy. Rising from the Salisbury Plain like a frozen celestial dance, Stonehenge's massive standing stones tell a story far older than written history. These aren't just rocks arranged in a circle, they're a sophisticated astronomical instrument carved from earth and sky. The outermost ring of sarsen stones forms a perfect 30-meter diameter circle, their lintels carefully curved to maintain the illusion of continuity when viewed from the center. But the real magic happens at dawn on the summer solstice, when the sun's first rays slice through the heel stone's alignment, striking the altar at the heart of the monument with laser-like precision. This wasn't just ceremonial, it was Neolithic precision engineering, a way to mark time's passage with stone instead of parchment. Archaeologists have uncovered something even more remarkable. The entire landscape around Stonehenge is part of its geometric design. 3 miles northeast lies Durrington Walls, a massive circular henge with its own solar alignments, connected to Stonehenge by the avenue, a processional pathway that mirrors the Milky Way's path across the sky. Recent ground-penetrating radar reveals these sites were nodes in a vast sacred network, with timber circles and burial mounds positioned at precise geometric intervals. The Cursus, a 3-kilometer-long earthwork east of Stonehenge, aligns with the equinox sunrise, while the smaller Woodhenge's oval shape tracks the moon's minor standstill, an 18.6-year cycle few modern observers could identify without software. What's often overlooked is how these circles functioned as communal technology. The inner bluestones, transported over 240 kilometers from Wales, aren't just visually striking. Their unique mineral composition generates piezoelectric charges when struck, creating resonant frequencies that enhance auditory hallucinations. Experiments show chanting within the circle produces eerie acoustic effects, with certain tones seeming to come from the stones themselves. This wasn't just architecture, it was an immersive interface for altering consciousness, where geometry became a conduit between worlds. The circle's symbolic power rippled far beyond Salisbury. From Scotland's Callanish stones to Germany's Gothic circle, Neolithic Europe was obsessed with circular sacred spaces. Even today, our brains process circles differently than angle. Studies show rounded spaces lower stress hormones and increase oxytocin. The builders of Stonehenge intuited this millennia ago, using the circle's infinite symmetry to represent cosmic unity. Their legacy lives on in every city square, every roundabout, every domed capitol, building subtle echoes of a time when humanity first tried to carve infinity into the earth. Step inside Chartres Cathedral, and you'll find yourself standing inside a living geometry textbook, one where every line and curve whispers secrets of the divine. Look up at the vaulted ceilings, and you're not just seeing arches, you're witnessing the Fibonacci sequence in stone, each curve growing wider at the exact ratio found in sunflower seeds and spiral galaxies. The floor beneath your feet, a labyrinth winding in 11 concentric circles, its path matching the orbits of medieval cosmology. Even the famed blue glass of the rose windows isn't merely decorative. Each pane is positioned to filter sunlight at precise angles, casting geometric patterns that shift with the seasons like celestial clockwork. The master masons who built these cathedrals weren't just craftsmen, they were mystic mathematicians working from sketchbooks filled with compass-drawn geometries called mystery diagrams. Take the quincunx, a pattern of 5 dots forming a cross hidden in the layout of Canterbury Cathedral's chapels. It wasn't just structural, it symbolized the 5 wounds of Christ, with each chapel's alignment corresponding to planets known at the time. At Rheims Cathedral, the pillars' spacing follows Pythagorean harmonic ratios, creating acoustics that turn chants into cascading echoes, as if the stones themselves were singing hymns. But the real genius lies in how these geometries shaped entire cities. Chartres streets spiral outward from the cathedral like the arms of a galaxy, their curves mirroring the golden ratio. In Paris, the Isle de la Cité's medieval lanes radiate from Notre Dame in perfect sectors, aligning with solstice sunrises. This wasn't urban sprawl, it was conscious cosmic mimicry, with the cathedral as the sun and the town its orbiting planets. Even the humble market squares played their part. Their dimensions often matched the nave's width, threading sacred proportions into daily commerce. What's often overlooked is how these designs manipulated human perception. The alternating black and white stones of Amiens Cathedral's floor create optical vibrations that guide pilgrims toward the apse, while the skewed axis of Salisbury Cathedral, its spire deliberately offset from the nave, forces visitors to crane their necks upward, inducing a physical posture of awe. The Masons knew something modern science confirms. Certain geometric patterns trigger gamma waves in the brain, states associated with transcendent experiences. Perhaps most astonishing are the hidden codes. At Cologne Cathedral, the triforium arches conceal a musical score when read left to right. Their spacing translates to Gregorian chant intervals. Lincoln Cathedral's flying buttresses encode the digits of pi in their angles, a mathematical pun for those initiated into Mason guilds. This wasn't just ornamentation, it was a secret language where geometry became the medium for truths too profound for words. The legacy, modern architects still puzzle over how these structures stand. Sharta's nave rises 120 feet on walls just 3 feet thick, a ratio defying physics without reinforced concrete. The answer lies in the mason's sacred arithmetic. Every load-bearing line follows the Vesica Piscis, that almond-shaped intersection of two circles revered since ancient times as a symbol of divine intersection. When sunlight pours through the south rose window at noon on the summer solstice, painting a perfect circle of light on the labyrinth center, you realize these builders didn't just construct buildings. They engineered epiphanies, turning stone and glass into portals where heaven's geometry touched earth. Walk through the gates of the Alhambra at sunset, and you'll step into a world where mathematics becomes poetry. Every surface shimmers with tessellating tiles, their intricate star patterns repeating without beginning or end, a visual representation of infinity that mirrors Islamic cosmology. But these aren't just decorations, they're masterclasses in advanced geometry. The artisans who crafted them used just 5 tile shapes known as Giri tiles to create infinite variations without a single repeating sequence, a concept mathematicians wouldn't formalize until the 20th century with quasi-crystalline structures. Stand beneath the Muqana's dome in the hall of the Abencerrage, and you'll see geometry made 3-dimensional. Hundreds of tiny niches cascade like crystallized honeycomb, each one a precise calculation of light and shadow designed to evoke the celestial spheres. This obsession with harmonic proportions extended far beyond palace walls. Take Cordoba's Great Mosque, where 850 columns form a forest of marble and jasper. At first glance, they appear randomly placed, but measure their spacing, and you'll find they follow the golden ratio, creating sightlines that draw the eye irresistibly toward the mihrab, the prayer niche aligned perfectly with Mecca. Even the courtyard's orange trees are planted in Fibonacci spirals, their flowering cycles timed to lunar phases. Baghdad's original circular design, lost to time but documented by historians, took this further. The round city's 3 concentric walls mirrored the orbits of Mercury, Venus, and Mars in Ptolemaic astronomy, with the caliph's golden domed palace at the center like a human sun. Gates aligned with solstice sunrises, while underground canals followed sacred angles believed to bless the water flowing through them. What's often overlooked is how these geometries served spiritual practice. The repetitive zellige tilework in Moroccan mosques isn't just beautiful, its fractal-like patterns induce a meditative state, helping worshippers focus during prayer. The interplay of octagons and squares in Islamic gardens represents the Quranic balance between earthly life, the square, and divine perfection, the circle. Even calligraphy follows strict geometric rules. The height of an aleph letter must equal the diameter of a circle drawn with the scribe's reed pen, tying written revelation to cosmic proportions. Modern physicists have found startling sophistication in these designs. The Alhambra's tilework contains 17 distinct wallpaper symmetry groups, every possible way to fill a plane with repeating patterns centuries before Western mathematicians categorized them. The Muqana's complex curvature distributes weight so efficiently that some vaults are thinner than an iPhone, yet have stood for 700 years. Perhaps most astonishing is how these builders worked without modern tools. Analysis of the Ibn Chaldun Mosque in Cairo reveals its minaret's spiral staircase ascends at exactly 51.5 degrees, the same angle as the Great Pyramid slope, achieved using nothing but knotted ropes and shadow sticks. The legacy lives on in unexpected places. Next time you admire a snowflake's symmetry or stare into a kaleidoscope's infinite reflections, you're glimpsing the same geometric truths that inspired a 9th-century mason in Samarra to carve swirling patterns into a minaret, turning brick into a hymn to the universe's hidden order. In these cities, every intersection wasn't just a crossing of streets, it was a convergence of earth and heaven where the compass met the cosmos. The ancient city of Xian wasn't just built on land, it was woven into it, every street and wall dancing with the invisible currents of Feng Shui. This wasn't mere superstition, it was an exacting science of placement where geometry became the language between heaven and earth. The city's massive walls followed the Baghua's 8 trigrams, each segment corresponding to a natural element and cardinal direction, creating a protective energetic shield. Walk those walls even today, and you'll notice how they curve slightly rather than form harsh angles, a deliberate design to allow Kai, the vital life force, to flow smoothly around the city like water around a stone. At the heart of this geometric harmony stood the Emperor's Palace, positioned along the central north-south axis known as the Dragon Vein. This wasn't poetic metaphor. Surveyors used lodestones to map these energy lines with startling accuracy, aligning major avenues with the path of the celestial pole star. The streets of old Beijing radiated outward from the Forbidden City in precise concentric rectangles, mirroring the ancient Chinese belief that the square represented Earth while the circle symbolized heaven. Every measurement held meaning. The distance between gates often matched important numerological sequences, with the number 9 associated with the emperor appearing repeatedly in staircases, door studs, and courtyard divisions. The Forbidden City itself is a masterclass in sacred geometry. Its nearly 10,000 rooms aren't randomly arranged, they follow the 9-5 principle, where the number 9, the largest single digit, intersects with 5, representing the center of the 8 trigrams to signify imperial authority. The Hall of Supreme Harmony sits precisely at the intersection of Beijing's dragon lines, its raised platform forming a perfect golden rectangle when viewed from above. Even the colors weren't arbitrary. The yellow roof tiles resonated with the earth element, while the red walls corresponded to fire, creating an alchemical balance through chromatic geometry. What modern city planners often miss is how Feng Shui incorporated environmental adaptation. The curved roofs of traditional buildings weren't just aesthetically pleasing, their upward tilting eaves prevented stagnant Kai from pooling, while the placement of artificial lakes and hills redirected energy flows according to the land's natural contours. In Hangzhou, the West Lake was deliberately shaped like a crescent moon to balance the surrounding mountains' yang energy with yin softness. This wasn't landscaping, it was geomancy, where every hillock and waterway became part of a living geometric equation. Recent studies reveal startling precision in these ancient designs. When archaeologists superimposed the Bagua over old Beijing's map, they found temples and markets positioned at exact trigram points. The fire-aligned Lai trigram coinciding with lantern markets, while the water-aligned Can trigram matched the location of imperial wells. Satellite imaging shows how the city's central axis aligns not just with the pole star, but with the distant peak of Mount Tai, China's most sacred mountain. This level of celestial and terrestrial synchronization required surveying knowledge that predates modern tools by centuries. The legacy lives on in surprising ways. Contemporary architects analyzing the Forbidden City's proportions discovered its layout follows the same harmonic ratios found in vibrating plates, a phenomenon known as Chladni patterns. When wind blows through its colonnades, the spacing between pillars creates natural sound frequencies that fall within the range known to induce calmness in human brainwaves. This wasn't just architecture, it was psychoacoustic engineering where geometry shaped both space and consciousness. From the winding paths that thwart evil spirits who supposedly move only in straight lines to the moon, gates that frame specific constellations during solstices, every element served multiple interlocking purposes, proving that for ancient Chinese planners, geometry wasn't just about building cities. It was about composing symphonies in stone. Plato's description of Atlantis isn't just a story, it's a geometric blueprint for utopia. He wrote of a city built in perfect concentric rings, alternating between land and water, with bridges and canals radiating like spokes from a central temple dedicated to Poseidon. The outermost ring measured 27 kilometers in diameter, a scale that dwarfed even the grandest ancient capitals. But here's what's fascinating. While Atlantis itself may be legendary, its design echoes real archaeological discoveries. On the island of Santorini, the ruins of Akrotiri reveal a Bronze Age city with circular plazas and radial streets, buried under volcanic ash around 1600 BCE, the same era Plato dated Atlantis's downfall. The city's drainage system even followed sacred geometric ratios, with pipe diameters matching harmonic musical intervals. Then there's Troy, whose layered ruins show 6 successive cities built atop one another, each with concentric fortifications resembling Plato's rings. Archaeologists have found that Troy's innermost citadel aligned with the summer solstice sunrise, while its outer walls mirrored the orbital proportions of nearby islands. These weren't coincidences. Circular city plans were sacred technology across the ancient world, from the Nurag towers of Sardinia to the circular Celtic oppida of Iron Age Europe. The shape wasn't just defensive, it symbolized unity, containment of cosmic energy, and the cyclical nature of time. Modern sonar mapping has added another twist. Off the coast of Spain's Andalusia region, researchers identified submerged concentric formations near the Doñana National Park, precisely where Plato claimed Atlantis stood, beyond the Pillars of Hercules. While most scholars dismiss this as natural geology, the patterns are uncanny. 7 nested rings matching Plato's dimensions, with artifacts suggesting human activity dating back to the Bronze Age. Whether Atlantis was real or imagined, its geometric ideal clearly tapped into something universal. The legacy of this circular obsession lives on, from Washington, D.C.'s radial avenues to the concentric canals of Amsterdam. Urban planners still gravitate toward ringed designs. Even disaster-resistant eco-atolls proposed by modern architects mirror Atlantis's waterland alternations. Perhaps Plato's greatest insight wasn't about a lost city, but about humanity's eternal urge to build in harmony with nature's deepest patterns, where geometry becomes both map and compass for civilizations reaching toward the divine. Stretching across the Ohio River Valley like a coiled celestial serpent, the Great Serpent Mound isn't just an earthen sculpture, it's a sprawling astronomical instrument carved into the landscape. This 1,300-foot-long effigy, with its 7 sinuous curves aligning to lunar and solar events, holds a secret in its geometry. During the summer solstice, the sun sets directly behind the serpent's open jaws, while the coils align with the moon's minor standstill positions, tracking its 18.6-year cycle. But the real marvel isn't just its precision, it's the way this mound, built by the fourth ancient culture over 1,000 years ago, mirrors constellations. The serpent's body mirrors the Draco constellation's winding shape, while its tail points to the setting sun during the winter solstice, weaving earthly and celestial patterns into a single sacred design. Further west, Cahokia's Mound City reveals an even grander geometric vision. At its peak around 1100 CE, this metropolis near modern-day St. Louis boasted over 120 earthen mounds arranged in precise alignments. Monk's Mound, the largest at 100 feet tall, forms a perfect parallelogram aligned to the cardinal directions, its 4 terraces echoing the sacred number 4 found in many Native American cosmologies. But the true genius lies in Woodhenge, a circle of 48 cedar posts reconstructed near the mounds. During equinoxes, sunrise casts shadows through these posts that intersect with specific mounds, creating a solar calendar more accurate than many medieval European counterparts. Archaeologists have discovered that the entire city's layout corresponds to lunar cycles. The distance between major mounds matches multiples of the moon's orbital period, turning Cahokia into a three-dimensional almanac. What's often overlooked is how these earthworks functioned as multisensory spiritual technology. The Serpent Mound's undulating form follows the natural magnetic anomalies of the underlying bedrock, creating subtle energy shifts detectable with modern magnetometers. At Poverty Point in Louisiana, concentric ridges form a giant semicircle facing the summer solstice sunrise, but they also act as acoustic amplifiers. Clapping hands at the center produces echoes that bounce between ridges with eerie precision. These weren't just monuments, they were interactive portals where geometry mediated between human senses and cosmic forces. The legacy of these mound builders challenges modern assumptions about indigenous science. The Octagon Earthworks in Ohio, part of the Newark Earthworks complex, features an 8-sided geometry aligned to the moon's maximum rise and set points with an accuracy of less than half a degree. Contemporary astronomers have confirmed that tracking these lunar extremes requires observing the moon's position for generations, proof of meticulously preserved oral traditions and mathematical knowledge. Similarly, the Cahokians' use of standardized units of measurement, like the Cahokia yard, approximately 3 feet, reveals a sophistication in spatial planning rivaling ancient Egyptian or Mesopotamian civilizations. Perhaps most profound is how these earthworks embody a living relationship with the land. Unlike stone monuments, earthen mounds require constant renewal, each layer of clay and soil representing generations of communal effort. The spiral mounds of the Southeast, like those at Winterville in Mississippi, were often built over centuries, their growing curves mirroring the Fibonacci sequence found in natural growth patterns. This wasn't just architecture, it was a dialogue with time itself, where geometry became the language linking past, present, and future. Today, as LiDAR technology reveals previously hidden earthworks beneath forests and farmland, we're only beginning to grasp the scale of this geometric legacy. From the perfect circles of Hopewell culture in Ohio to the animal effigies of Wisconsin, these formations whisper a truth modern urban planners are rediscovering, that the most enduring cities aren't those that conquer nature, but those that converse with it using geometry as their shared vocabulary. After centuries of medieval scholasticism, Europe awoke to a revelation: the rediscovery of ancient knowledge that had been preserved in Arabic libraries and Byzantine monasteries. In Florence, the cradle of the Renaissance, architects and artists pored over newly translated texts by Euclid, Ptolemy, and Heron of Alexandria, seeing in their geometric theorems not just mathematics but divine revelation. Filippo Brunelleschi didn't just design the dome of Florence Cathedral, he resurrected a lost art. Using Heron's ancient formulas for calculating vaulted spaces, he created the largest masonry dome ever built, its double-shelled structure following precise geometric curves that distributed weight with celestial harmony. But Brunelleschi's genius went deeper. He secretly embedded the dome's proportions with Pythagorean musical ratios, so when wind whistled through its lantern, it supposedly produced harmonic frequencies echoing the music of the spheres. The city's piazzas became outdoor classrooms for sacred geometry. Piazza della Signoria wasn't just a civic space, it was a perfect square aligned to the winter solstice sunrise, its dimensions matching the golden rectangle. When Cosimo de' Medici commissioned Michelozzo to design the Palazzo Medici, the courtyard's arches followed the Vesica Piscis, that almond-shaped sacred intersection of circles revered since antiquity. Even the cobblestone patterns were deliberate. Their alternating diamonds and crosses formed a giant labyrinth, subtly guiding visitors toward the palazzo's geometric heart. No figure embodied this fusion of art and geometry more than Leonardo da Vinci. His Vitruvian Man wasn't just a sketch, it was a manifesto. By superimposing the human form onto a circle and square, Leonardo revealed how the body itself encodes sacred proportions. The distance from fingertip to fingertip equals a person's height, mirroring the square, while the navel marks the center of a perfect circle. These ratios, the same ones found in the Parthenon and the Great Pyramid, became the Renaissance's architectural Rosetta Stone. This geometric revival wasn't confined to Florence. In Venice, the Doge Palace's facade used a quincunx pattern, 4 points forming a square with a central fifth, symbolizing the 4 elements united by spirit. Palladio's villas in the Veneto countryside employed harmonic proportions so precise that rooms' dimensions corresponded to musical intervals, creating spaces that sang when voices resonated within them. Even street planning transformed. Rome's Piazza del Popolo was redesigned as a trivium radiating from an Egyptian obelisk, its 3 streets forming a sacred triangle aligned to major basilicas. What's often overlooked is how this movement married geometry with humanism. When Leon Battista Alberti wrote that buildings should mirror the harmony of the human soul, he wasn't speaking metaphorically. The spiral staircases of Renaissance palaces followed the golden ratio's logarithmic spiral, the same growth pattern seen in seashells, to create subliminally calming ascents. Window placements in Urbino's ducal palace corresponded to solar angles, casting ever-changing geometric shadows that marked the hours like a sundial. This wasn't just aesthetics, it was psychoarchitecture, designing spaces to elevate consciousness. The legacy, modern urban planning, owes more to these Renaissance innovations than we realize. From the radial boulevards of Paris to the gridded streets of Manhattan, the idea that cities should reflect cosmic order through geometry stems from this era. When you walk through a European square and feel an inexplicable sense of balance, you're not imagining it. You're standing in a carefully calculated nexus of sacred proportions, where every angle whispers the Renaissance's greatest lesson, that beauty and truth are written in the language of shapes. Paris didn't become the city of light by accident. It was meticulously sculpted into a living ode to sacred geometry. When Baron Haussmann ripped through the medieval maze of streets in the 1800s, he wasn't just creating grand boulevards for parades and policing. He was drawing star patterns onto the urban fabric, transforming Paris into a celestial map. Stand at the Arc de Triomphe at dawn, and you'll see it 12 avenues radiating outward like sunbeams, each aligned to significant solar events. The Champs-Élysées points directly to the summer solstice sunrise, while Avenue de la Grande Armée frames the winter solstice sunset. This wasn't urban planning, it was astro-architecture, where every thoroughfare became a spoke in a giant cosmic wheel. But Haussmann's genius lay in layering old magic beneath modern pragmatism. The Louvre's glass pyramids, added centuries later, might seem like a futuristic contrast to the palace's Renaissance grandeur. Look closer, their proportions mirror the Great Pyramid of Giza's sacred geometry, with the same 51-degree slope angle revered by ancient Egyptian architects. The larger pyramid's base perimeter divided by its height yields pi, just like its desert counterpart. Even their placement isn't arbitrary. The pyramids form a precise alignment with the equinox sunrise, casting shadows that intersect with hidden markers in the Coeur Napoleon. The real marvel is how Paris's geometry operates on multiple scales. From above, the city's arrondissements spiral outward like a nautilus shell, following the Fibonacci sequence. The Place de l'Étoile isn't just a traffic circle, its 8 radiating avenues create an octagram, a symbol of regeneration found in Gothic cathedrals and Islamic tilework. Cross the Seine to the left bank, and you'll find the Pantheon sitting atop Montagne St. Genevieve like the keystone of a giant sundial. At noon on the spring equinox, sunlight streams through its oculus to strike a bronze meridian line embedded in the floor, a feature borrowed from ancient Roman temples. What most visitors miss are the subtle harmonic codes. The intervals between Haussmann's iconic cream-colored apartment buildings follow musical ratios, whole tones, perfect fifths, creating visual rhythms that subconsciously soothe the eye. The ironwork of the Eiffel Tower's base forms a series of interlocking vesica piscis, those sacred almond shapes where circles overlap, believed by medieval mystics to be portals between dimensions. Even the seemingly chaotic layout of Montmartre hides geometric intent. Its winding streets trace the same labyrinthine patterns found in Chartres Cathedral's floor, designed to slow pedestrians and induce contemplation. Paris's enduring lesson, sacred geometry, isn't confined to antiquity. When the city's modern architects designed La Défense, they positioned the Grand Archie to complete a perfect equilateral triangle with the Arc de Triomphe and the Louvre's Coeur Carré, framing an invisible pyramid over the city's historical axis. The nearby Les Quatre Temps shopping center's glass roof replicates the flower of life pattern, an ancient symbol of creation. From its Neolithic roots as a Celtic settlement aligned to solstices to its current skyline, Paris whispers a truth: geometry isn't just about shapes. It's about shaping human experience, turning stone, steel, and sunlight into a symphony of hidden harmony. Washington, D.C. unfolds across the landscape like a living cipher, a city where the streets whisper in angles and the monuments hum with hidden harmonies. At first glance, it appears to be a typical modern capital, but trace your finger along its avenues on a map, and you'll uncover something extraordinary. The National Mall stretches like a ceremonial pathway, its east-west axis aligning not just with the Capitol and Lincoln Memorial, but with the setting sun on the summer solstice. This isn't urban planning by accident. Pierre L'Enfant, the Freemason architect entrusted by George Washington to design the city, embedded layers of sacred geometry into its blueprint, merging Enlightenment ideals with esoteric traditions. The most striking pattern emerges when you connect the dots. Draw lines between the White House, the Jefferson Memorial, and the Capitol, and a perfect Pythagorean triangle takes shape. Extend those lines further, and they intersect with key landmarks at precise golden ratio proportions. But the real revelation lies in the street grid itself. Major avenues radiate from the Capitol like sunbeams, forming a series of overlapping pentagrams, a five-pointed star sacred to Pythagoras and later adopted by Freemasonry as a symbol of human potential. The largest pentagram's northern point touches Du Pont Circle, while its southern tip aligns with the White House, creating an invisible geometric web that binds political and spiritual power. The Capitol dome itself is a masterclass in sacred architecture. Its height matches its diameter, forming a perfect hemisphere that echoes the Pantheon in Rome, a deliberate homage to democratic ideals rooted in ancient wisdom. Inside, the rotunda's floor features a compass rose design, its 8 points corresponding to the winds of classical tradition. Even the statue atop the dome, Freedom, stands 19 feet 6 inches tall, a number significant in Masonic numerology for its connection to lunar cycles and the feminine divine. What's often overlooked are the celestial alignments. The mall's long axis doesn't just point west, it targets the star Regulus in the constellation Leo, known as the King's Star in astrology. On July 4, 1976, the bicentennial eclipse's path of totality crossed directly over Washington, as if the heavens endorsed the geometric experiment below. The Washington Monument, that towering obelisk, serves as both sundial and cosmic marker. Its shadow traces seasonal patterns on the mall, while its east-facing entrance aligns with the sunrise on the winter solstice, flooding the interior with golden light. Critics argue these patterns are coincidental, but the historical record suggests otherwise. Thomas Jefferson, another Freemason, personally selected the dimensions for the White House's Oval Office based on Vitruvian proportions. The Library of Congress's Great Hall hides a ceiling mosaic of the zodiac, positioned so that Libra, the sign of justice, hovers directly above the Supreme Court. Even the city's original boundary stones, placed at 1-mile intervals in a 10-mile square, encoded Masonic symbolism in their placement and inscriptions. The legacy of D.C.'s design ripples through time. When Martin Luther King Jr. stood on the Lincoln Memorial steps during the "I Have a Dream" speech, he wasn't just addressing a crowd, he was standing at the vertex of a sacred geometric formation, his words amplified by the same principles ancient builders used to focus energy in temples. Modern protesters marching down Pennsylvania Avenue unknowingly walk a path calculated to maximize visibility and acoustic projection, proving that sacred geometry isn't just about mysticism, it's about harnessing universal principles of space and perception. From the Fibonacci spiral of the National Gallery's garden to the Vesica Piscis shape formed by the intersecting circles of the Kennedy Center's plaza, Washington proves that even in our secular age, the old language of shapes still speaks. The next time you see an aerial shot of the mall at dusk, watch how the lights trace geometric constellations, not just street lamps, but stars in a modern firmament, keeping alive an ancient dialogue between earth and sky. Brasilia rises from the Brazilian savanna like a geometric dream made concrete, a city shaped like an airplane, its wings stretching for kilometers in perfect symmetry. Designed by Oscar Niemeyer in 1956, this modernist marvel hides ancient secrets beneath its futuristic curves. The Esplanade of Ministries forms the fuselage, with the National Congress and Cathedral at the cockpit, while residential superblocks align along the wings in precise golden ratio intervals. But the real magic lies in the city's celestial alignments. The monumental axis, the world's longest straight urban thoroughfare, doesn't just organize traffic, it frames the sunrise on April 21st, the day Brasilia was inaugurated, and an ancient Mesoamerican solar festival date. The city's artificial lake mirrors the crescent moon's shape, while the Itamarati Palace's arches form a sequence of Vesica Piscis, those sacred almond-shaped intersections revered since Gothic cathedrals and Islamic mosaics. Halfway across the globe, Dubai's skyline pulses with fractal geometry, the same repeating patterns found in snowflakes and fern fronds. The Burj Khalifa isn't just tall, its step design mirrors the desert hyacinth spiral growth, reducing wind resistance while echoing Islamic minarets. The Palm Jumeirah's fronds follow logarithmic spirals seen in hurricanes and galaxies, maximizing waterfront while creating harmonic energy flow. Even Dubai's lesser-known structures whisper geometric codes. The Opus by Zaha Hadid uses a three-dimensional Möbius strip design, where surfaces flow seamlessly like the ancient symbol of infinity. East in Singapore, skyscrapers bend and twist according to Feng Shui principles. The Marina Bay Sands 3 towers support a cantilevered sky park, precisely 340 meters long, a number considered auspicious in Chinese numerology for sounding like life and death in Mandarin. The city's super tree grove arises 18 artificial trees in formations mirroring the Baghua's 8 trigrams with a central yin-yang balance. Underground, Singapore's MRT stations position entrances at Dragon Vein energy points, proving ancient geomancy thrives in hyper-modern context. New York's skyline tells its own geometric tale. The Empire State Building's Art Deco crown encodes Pythagorean triangles, while the Chrysler Building's stainless steel arches form a sequence of golden rectangles. Even the seemingly chaotic grid of Manhattan reveals hidden order. The distance between 5th and 6th Avenues matches the Great Pyramid's base-to-height ratio, and the Flatiron Building's triangular lot aligns with summer solstice sunsets. What's fascinating is how these patterns persist whether intentional or not. Studies show people unconsciously prefer offices with golden ratio proportions, and hospitals with fractal designs reduce patient recovery times. Tokyo's subway maps and Paris's metro stations both use color coding systems that mirror the 7 chakra colors, an echo of Vedic geometry in urban wayfinding. From the hexagonal basalt columns of Giant's Causeway inspiring Barcelona's pavement, designs to the DNA-like double helix of the Singapore Art Science Museum's staircase, sacred geometry keeps resurfacing like a cultural subconscious. Perhaps this explains why certain modern spaces feel right, while others jar the senses. The Sydney Opera House's shell clusters mimic the Fibonacci sequence of a pine cone, while the Gherkin in London's diamond-patterned glass skin reduces wind vortices just as a sea sponge's structure dissipates ocean currents. Even in our steel and glass age, the most livable cities still dance to geometry's silent music, proof that whether by calculation or intuition, humans keep rebuilding the same sacred patterns our ancestors once traced in stone and sand. The human brain lights up like a constellation when it encounters perfect symmetry, not as mere preference, but as deep biological programming. Neuroscientists using fMRI scanners have discovered that our visual cortex processes symmetrical patterns 40% faster than random ones, triggering dopamine releases in the reward centers. This isn't just aesthetic pleasure, it's evolutionary wiring. Early humans who recognized the hexagonal symmetry of honeycombs found nutritious calories. Those who spotted the radial symmetry of edible plants survived. Over millennia, our neural pathways became fine-tuned to geometric harmony as a survival mechanism, which explains why staring at the fractal patterns of a Gothic rose window or the repeating arches of a mosque can feel like stepping into a cognitive sanctuary. Fractals, those infinitely repeating geometric patterns found in everything from fern leaves to galaxy clusters, hold particular power. Studies at Yale University exposed participants to fractal designs with a dimensionality ratio between 1.3 and 1.5, the same range found in sacred architecture from Angkor Wat to Chartres Cathedral. The result, a 60% reduction in stress biomarkers and a measurable increase in theta brainwaves, the state associated with deep meditation and creativity. Ancient builders intuitively understood this psychogeometric alchemy. The labyrinth floor of Rheims Cathedral isn't just a walking meditation. Its fractal path mirrors the branching patterns of human capillaries and river deltas, creating what physicists call resonant harmonics between observer and environment. Quantum physics now reveals even deeper connections. At the subatomic level, particles arrange themselves in geometric lattices. Quarks form tetrahedrons. Atoms cluster into icosahedrons. The very fabric of spacetime may be woven from microscopic geometric units called Planck lengths, suggesting the universe operates like a cosmic kaleidoscope. String theory proposes that reality's fundamental building blocks aren't particles but vibrating geometric strings. When researchers at CERN observed proton collisions, the resulting energy patterns matched the flower of life's sacred geometry, the same symbol etched into Egyptian temple walls 5,000 years ago. Biologists have uncovered geometric blueprints in DNA. The double helix's turn ratio is 34 angstroms per 10 base pairs, a perfect expression of the Fibonacci sequence. Cell division follows the same geometric progression as the seed of life pattern, while the microtubules structuring our neurons mirror the Sri Yantra's intersecting triangles. This isn't metaphor, it's measurable biomathematics. When Tibetan monks chant inside a mandala-shaped room, their vocal frequencies cause the geometric patterns to vibrate at 54 Hz, the exact frequency shown to stimulate human stem cell regeneration. The implications ripple across disciplines. Architects now use EEG headsets to test how different geometric spaces affect brain activity, discovering that domes generate 40% more alpha waves than flat ceilings. Urban planners in Tokyo have reduced crime rates by 30% simply by incorporating sacred geometry into park designs, curved paths instead of right angles, fractal-inspired benches instead of straight lines. Even technology bends toward these ancient principles. The golden ratio governs the most visually pleasing website layouts, while fractal compression algorithms make digital images load faster. Perhaps most astonishing is how these discoveries bridge ancient intuition and modern empiricism. When a Navajo sand painter creates a healing mandala or a Byzantine mosaicist lays tessellated gold tiles, they're not just making art, they're hacking the universal geometric code that our biology and physics instinctively recognize. The spiral of a nautilus shell, the hexagonal basalt columns of Giant's Causeway, the double helix of our DNA, all whisper the same truth. Sacred geometry isn't just the design language of temples and cities. It's the operating system of reality itself, written in shapes our souls remember even when our modern minds forget. Ley lines stretch across the planet like invisible threads stitching sacred sites together, a hidden latticework of energy that some believe pulsed beneath the feet of ancient builders. Picture standing at Glastonbury Tor in England, where the ruins of a medieval chapel crown a natural hill. Now draw an imaginary line southeast to Stonehenge, then onward to the Salisbury Cathedral. These three landmarks don't just share historical significance. They align with uncanny precision along a straight path spanning over 30 miles. This is no accident, say ley line theorists, but evidence of a deliberate network connecting power spots where the Earth's energy concentrates. The Great Pyramid of Giza sits at the intersection of multiple ley lines, its corners aligning with other global monuments like Easter Island's Maui and Mexico's Teotihuacan, forming what researchers call the world grid. What exactly flows along these lines? Proponents point to measurable anomalies, magnetic fluctuations, increased electrical conductivity, and even strange acoustic effects. At Sedona's vortex sites, compass needles spin erratically, while visitors report heightened intuition or emotional shifts. In Peru, shamans still follow sect lines, invisible pathways connecting Huaca's sacred spots in straight trajectories radiating from Cusco like spokes on a wheel. These alignments aren't arbitrary. They mirror underground water veins, geological faults, and mineral deposits that may generate subtle energy fields. Modern dowsers using copper rods often trace ley lines precisely where medieval churches built over ancient pagan sites, suggesting continuous recognition of these currents across millennia. Skeptics dismiss ley lines as apophenia, the human tendency to see patterns in randomness. Yet intriguing scientific studies lend credence to parts of the theory. NASA GRACE satellites have mapped gravitational variations that eerily correspond to traditional ley routes. German researchers using ground-penetrating radar at Externstein, a Teutonic sacred site, discovered subterranean quartz veins emitting piezoelectric pulses when stressed by tectonic activity, essentially, the Earth itself generating energy along geometric fault lines. Even Stonehenge's bluestones, transported from Wales' Preseli Hills, contain high levels of crystalline quartz known to amplify electromagnetic fields when compressed. The most compelling evidence comes from archaeology. The Nazca lines, those massive geoglyphs in Peru's desert, align with underground aquifers and intersect at points where ceremonial wells were dug. China's dragon lines, documented in ancient Feng Shui texts, often follow seismic fractures where negative ions linked to mood enhancement emerge from the earth. In Ireland, the hill of Tara's Lear Fail's Stone of Destiny stands at the crossing of 5 ley lines, a site where Celtic kings were crowned and where modern instruments detect unusual infrasound frequencies below human hearing. Whether ley lines channel spiritual energy, tectonic stresses, or something science hasn't yet quantified, their cultural impact is undeniable. Medieval cathedral builders in France aligned their naves to existing ley paths, embedding labyrinth floor patterns that may have functioned as energy conduits. Japanese shrine architects positioned torii gates along dragon paths, known as suijoku, while Native American tribes like the Hopi spoke of spiritual highways connecting their kivas. Even modern cities unconsciously echo this tradition. London's underground tunnels reportedly follow ancient ley routes, and Washington, D.C.'s street grid intersects at nodes corresponding to Masonic sacred geometry. Perhaps ley lines represent humanity's earliest GPS, not for navigation, but for harnessing the Earth's resonant frequencies. When you walk the Camino de Santiago or circle Uluru, you're not just following a path. You're tracing invisible currents that our ancestors felt in their bones long before science could measure them. The stones they raised, the temples they oriented, the cities they planned, all whisper of a lost dialogue between humankind and a living, pulsing planet. A beehive's hexagonal chambers, a nautilus shell's golden spiral, the branching veins of a leaf, these aren't just beautiful accidents. They're evidence of a geometric code woven into the fabric of life itself. When ancient builders shaped their cities, they weren't imposing human ideas onto nature. They were mirroring a language the universe had already written. Take the humble snowflake. No two are alike, yet every one forms a perfect six-pointed star, its crystalline structure following the same mathematical rules that dictate the basalt columns of Giant's Causeway and the honeycomb vaulting of Gothic cathedrals. This isn't coincidence, it's convergence where biology, geology, and human creativity all tap into the same underlying principles. The spiral, one of sacred geometry's most potent symbols, reveals this connection most vividly. From the double helix of DNA to the arms of the Milky Way, spirals appear at every scale of existence. The Fibonacci sequence, that series of numbers where each is the sum of the two preceding ones, manifests in sunflower seed arrangements, hurricane formations, and even the growth pattern of galaxies. When the architects of Angkor Wat designed their temple mountains with staircases that corkscrewed toward the heavens, or when Renaissance masons built spiral staircases into cathedral towers, they weren't just being artistic. They were harnessing a universal growth pattern, one that balances efficiency and expansion, stability and dynamism. Modern science confirms what intuition told them. Fibonacci spirals allow for maximum packing like seeds in a sunflower and minimal resistance like water swirling down a drain, proving nature favors these geometries for reasons beyond aesthetics. Even the human body whispers this geometric truth. The proportions of your hand, the ratio of fingertip to wrist, or the spacing between knuckles echo the same golden mean that shapes seashells and temple columns. Your lungs branch fractally, with airways dividing into smaller and smaller tubes in a pattern identical to the roots of the Bodhi tree under which Buddha attained enlightenment. When Da Vinci sketched his Vitruvian Man, he wasn't inventing ideal proportions. He was documenting a biological reality that builders from Egypt to Greece had already encoded into their monuments. The pyramid's slope angles match the incline of a sand dune's slip face the steepest angle at which loose particles can naturally stack. The Parthenon's columns swell slightly at the center, mimicking the way tree trunks thicken to bear weight. Everywhere you look, sacred geometry blurs the line between the built and the born. This symbiosis between natural patterns and human design reaches its zenith in water. Japanese researcher Masaru Emoto's controversial experiments suggested water forms hexagonal crystals when exposed to harmonious music or positive words, a finding that, while debated, resonates with ancient beliefs about sacred springs and holy wells. The same sixfold symmetry appears in the molecular structure of snowflakes and the stonework of Islamic ablution fountains. When medieval masons designed cathedral labyrinths with paths that mirrored the meandering flow of rivers, another fractal pattern found from capillary veins to continental watersheds, they may have intuitively understood what modern hydrology confirms. Nature's most efficient paths are never straight, but follow curves that balance energy expenditure and coverage. Modern architects are rediscovering these principles with urgency. In Singapore's Gardens by the Bay, steel super trees mimic the fractal branching of rainforest canopies, their spiraling walkways optimizing shade and airflow just as actual trees do. The Eden Project in England models its geodesic domes on soap bubbles, nature's perfect minimal surface structures. Even urban planners now study termite mounds, whose intricate ventilation systems maintain constant temperatures without mechanical intervention, inspiring passive cooling designs in Zimbabwe's Eastgate Center. The message is clear: the same geometric intelligence that guided ancient city builders still pulses through the living world, waiting for us to relearn its rhythms. Perhaps most profoundly, this geometric kinship suggests a radical idea: that when humans build in harmony with nature's patterns, we don't just conserve energy or create beauty. We align ourselves with something primordial, a resonance that our cells recognize even when our minds forget. The next time you marvel at a spiderweb's radial symmetry or the Fibonacci swirl of a pine cone, remember, you're not just observing nature's artistry. You're glimpsing the blueprint our ancestors used to weave the sacred into the stones beneath their feet, and the blueprint we might yet use to rebuild our future. The Industrial Revolution didn't just change how we built cities, it rewrote their very DNA. Gone were the winding streets that curved like river bends, the temple spires aligned to solstice sunrises, the public squares designed as harmonic resonators. In their place rose the rigid grid, a geometric dictatorship of right angles and numbered streets, where efficiency trumped transcendence. Take Manhattan's 1811 Commissioner's Plan, a ruthless checkerboard imposed without regard for topography, spirituality, or human scale. Sacred sites became real estate parcels. Trinity Church, once the tallest structure in New York, soon dwarfed by steel-framed towers that scraped the sky without conversing with it. The same story unfolded globally. London's medieval labyrinth of ley line-aligned lanes was buried under Victorian railways, while Paris's Haussmannization, though beautiful, prioritized military control over cosmic alignment. The message was clear: cities were no longer bridges between earth and heaven, but machines for production and profit. Yet something vital was lost in this geometric sterilization. Studies now show what ancient builders knew instinctively: sterile grids increase stress hormones, while organic curves and sacred proportions lower blood pressure. Tokyo's rigid post-war reconstruction correlated with rising urban anxiety, until designers reintroduced fractal-like green spaces mimicking shrine gardens. Psychologists identify this as biogeometric dissonance, the unease we feel when surrounded by unnatural angles devoid of nature's ratios. Even early industrialists sensed this lack. The smokestacks of Manchester may have belched progress, but their workers still sought solace in the last sacred geometries left. The arched vaults of train stations inspired by Roman baths, the stained glass windows of churches retaining Gothic proportions amidst the grit. The real turning point came with the rise of the skyscraper. Unlike the stepped pyramids of Mesoamerica or the domes of Florence, these glass cliffs prioritized ego over ecology. Feng Shui masters warned that Manhattan's financial district, with its knife-edged towers creating poison arrow energy channels, would invite economic crashes, a prediction some say came true in 1929 and 2008. Modern Dubai's fractal-inspired towers, though visually stunning, often ignore solar alignments, requiring massive air conditioning to offset poor orientation. The irony: ancient desert cities like Shibam in Yemen used sacred geometry to stay cool, its mud brick high-rises angled to catch breezes while casting shade, proving sustainability and spirituality once walked hand in hand. Now, as concrete jungles bake under climate change and urban loneliness reaches epidemic levels, a quiet revolution is brewing. Architects like Christopher Alexander argue for a return to pattern language, design principles rooted in sacred geometry that make spaces feel alive. In Sweden, the curvilinear forms of Stockholm's eco-village reduce wind turbulence while mimicking forest clearings. China's sponge cities employ ancient water management geometries from Angkor Wat's moats to combat flooding. Even corporate campuses are catching on. Apple Park's circular design isn't just futuristic, it's a conscious echo of the mandala, fostering collaboration through its concentric rings. Perhaps the most telling shift is in urban planning software. Algorithms now generate street layouts using dendritic patterns copied from leaf veins and river systems, the very fractal designs sacred geometry has revered for millennia. From Magellan's escalator-equipped favelas following mountain contours to Copenhagen's bicycle highways spiraling like nautilus shells, the future of cities might not lie in rejecting industrialization's lessons, but in reconciling them with the ancient geometric wisdom we foolishly discarded. The challenge: to build not just smarter cities but soulful ones, where steel and spirit share the same blueprint. Auroville rises from the Tamil Nadu coastline like a living mandala, a city where streets spiral outward from the Matrimandir, its golden geodesic dome pulsing at the geometric heart of the community. This isn't just urban planning, it's alchemy, blending the flower of life's ancient symmetry with solar panels and rainwater harvesting. The city's radial sectors follow the golden angle 137.5 degrees, the same spiral found in sunflower seed arrangements and galaxy arms, optimizing space while creating natural airflow channels that reduce the need for air conditioning. Walk its shaded pathways and you'll notice something profound. The curves aren't just aesthetic, they slow pedestrians down, inviting chance encounters, mimicking the meandering paths of traditional Indian villages where every bend held social significance. Halfway across the world, Copenhagen's Nordhavn district takes a different geometric approach. Its canals form a series of interlocking vesica piscis, those almond-shaped sacred intersections creating water channels that double as flood buffers during storms. The apartment building's staggered hexagonal designs maximize sunlight exposure while reducing wind tunnels, a lesson borrowed from beehive thermodynamics. Even the bike lanes follow sinusoidal waves rather than straight lines, a deliberate choice that studies show reduces cyclist fatigue by 17% by engaging different muscle groups. proving sacred geometry isn't just about static forms, but the poetry of movement. What unites these modern eco-cities with ancient wisdom is their biomimetic DNA. Singapore's Gardens by the Bay uses fractal geometry in its supertree structures, their branching steel frames supporting vertical gardens that mimic rainforest canopies. The tree's photovoltaic canopies angle at 51 degrees, the Great Pyramid slope, to optimize solar absorption while casting patterned shadows that replicate the dappled light of natural woodlands. Beneath them, the flower dome's hexagonal glass panels distribute structural weight like basalt columns, requiring 30% less steel than conventional designs. This isn't just sustainability, it's symbiosis, where human habitats stop fighting nature's geometry and start collaborating with it. The real breakthrough comes when these principles scale up. China's Chengdu Future City, currently under construction, takes inspiration from the Baghua's 8 trigrams, arranging neighborhoods in concentric rings connected by green corridors. Early simulations predict the layout will cut energy use by 40% simply by aligning buildings to seasonal wind patterns, a technique Persian architects used in windcatcher towers 2,000 years earlier. In Abu Dhabi, Masdar City's narrow, zigzagging streets aren't just for shade. Their angles follow historic Arab trading routes that naturally funnel cool desert breezes, reducing the need for artificial cooling by 55%. Technology now allows us to see why these ancient patterns work. Computational fluid dynamics shows how circular city layouts like Auroville's create microclimates where air circulates in self-cleaning vortices, reducing pollution hotspots. Satellite thermal imaging reveals that neighborhoods following Fibonacci spacing like Berlin's Hufeisensiedlung retain 20% more green space without sacrificing density. Even something as simple as curving a street can have profound effects. Studies in Portland found that winding roads modeled on Celtic labyrinth patterns reduced traffic speeds naturally, cutting pedestrian accidents while increasing street-level social interaction. Perhaps the most promising fusion lies in the digital realm. Parametric design software now lets architects test thousands of geometric variations in minutes, optimizing a building's shape for solar gain the way Gothic masons once did with protractors and intuition. At the University of Stuttgart, researchers 3D printed an entire pavilion using algorithms based on sea urchin skeletons, achieving unprecedented strength with minimal material. Meanwhile, indigenous architects are collaborating with software developers to encode traditional knowledge into urban planning tools. The Maori concept of Whakapapa interconnectedness, manifesting as algorithms that ensure new developments maintain sacred sightlines to ancestral mountains. The lesson emerging from these experiments is humbling. The solutions to 21st century urban crises, heat islands, social isolation, resource depletion, were encoded in geometric wisdom long before steel and concrete dominated our skyline. As Auroville's founder, the mother, once said, there should be a place where the past and future meet in the present. In these eco-cities, that place takes physical form where the circle, that most ancient symbol of unity, becomes a solar panel, where the sacred spiral guides both pedestrian flows and stormwater drainage, where geometry stops being just shapes on paper and starts being the living syntax of a sustainable future. Virtual worlds pulse with hidden symmetries, ones and zeros arranging themselves into patterns older than the pyramids. When game designers craft digital landscapes, they don't start from scratch. They lean on fractal algorithms, those infinitely repeating geometric sequences that shape mountain ranges and coastlines in reality. The rolling hills of the Elder Scrolls or the alien flora of Avatar, frontiers of Pandora, aren't just artistic whims, they're generated using Mandelbrot equations, the same mathematical principles that govern the branching of rivers and the spirals of galaxies. This isn't just efficiency, it's an unconscious homage to the geometries that feel instinctively right to our brains, honed by millennia of evolution in a fractal-rich natural world. Step into a VR meditation app like Trip, and you'll find yourself surrounded by mandalas that pulse and shift not as abstract art, but as deliberate tools for altering consciousness. Developers at companies like Oculus Research have discovered that environments built with golden ratio proportions reduce motion sickness by up to 40%, while spaces featuring hexagonal grids like beehives or the basalt formations of Giant's Causeway induce calmness faster than rectangular layouts. Ancient Greek theaters used these same acoustic geometries to amplify whispers. Now, VR architects employ them to optimize spatial audio, making virtual temples resonate with the same harmonic clarity as Chartres Cathedral. The metaverse's most ambitious projects are doubling down on this ancient meets digital alchemy. Decentraland's virtual Burning Man celebrations unfold in fractal-inspired arenas where pavilions align to solstice events programmed into the code, mirroring Stonehenge's celestial choreography. Meanwhile, researchers at Stanford's Virtual Human Interaction Lab have built digital replicas of Angkor Wat and the Parthenon, studying how test subjects respond to sacred proportions in headset versus physical space. The results, identical spikes in theta brainwaves, the state linked to spiritual awe, proving geometry's power transcends material form. What's emerging is a curious feedback loop between past and future. AI tools like Mid-Journey, when prompted to generate sacred spaces, default to Gothic arches, Fibonacci spirals, and Sri Yantra-like patterns without explicit direction, suggesting these shapes are hardwired into our collective aesthetic subconscious. Blockchain platforms hosting virtual land sales see plots with golden ratio dimensions sell for 30% higher premiums, as if buyers instinctively recognize their harmonic value. Even glitches in these systems reveal hidden truths. When a Second Life server once bugged, warping buildings into accidental fractals, users reported unexpectedly profound emotional responses before the error was fixed. The boundary between physical and virtual sanctity is dissolving. Tibetan monks now consecrate digital stupas in AltSpace VR, tracing the same sand mandalas in pixels that their ancestors did in colored grains. A London-based startup sells NFT energy grids for virtual homes, their layouts based on the same ley line mappings that guided Neolithic stone circles. As we strap on headsets to attend weddings in Horizon Worlds or meditate in Zen VR, we're not just adopting new technology, we're resurrecting an old pact between geometry and the numinous, proving that even in a world of polygons and pixels, the soul still craves the shapes that first taught it to wonder. The same geometric principles that shaped ancient temples and celestial cities aren't locked in the past, they're waiting in the cracks of your everyday life. Start with your living space. That empty wall isn't just a blank slate, it's a canvas for harmony. Hang a mirror in the shape of the Vesica Piscis, the almond intersection of two circles sacred to Gothic architects, and watch how light refracts differently, creating soft cathedral-like luminance. Rearrange furniture using the golden ratio. Place your sofa roughly 1.6 times farther from the coffee table than the table's length, a proportion proven to feel instinctively balanced. Even houseplants can become geometric allies. Spiral succulents like aloe vera or the Fibonacci-patterned petals of a sunflower on your windowsill subtly tune your environment to nature's rhythms. For a deeper dive, grab a compass and sketch the flower of life, that interlocking circle pattern found in Egyptian temples and Chinese artifacts. As your pencil traces the sixth overlapping ring, you'll experience what medieval mystics called the dance of the compass, where simple motions reveal cosmic patterns. Modern research shows this act of geometric drawing activates both hemispheres of the brain, inducing a flow state similar to meditation. Tape your creation to your workspace. Studies indicate that exposure to sacred geometric patterns can boost problem-solving creativity by up to 20%. Turn mealtime into a geometric ritual. Slice apples horizontally to reveal the five-pointed star in their core, a pentagram ancient Greeks associated with health. Arrange charcuterie in spirals mimicking the Milky Way's arms, or pour tea into a cup while observing how the liquid forms golden ratio vortices as it swirls. These aren't just aesthetic choices. Japanese researchers found that food presented in sacred geometric arrangements actually enhances perceived flavor, likely because our brains associate these patterns with natural abundance. Even your daily walk can become a geometric pilgrimage. Notice how tree branches bifurcate in fractal patterns identical to lung bronchi and river deltas. Seek out architectural details, the hexagonal tiles of a subway station, the rose windows of a local church, or the parabolic arch of a pedestrian bridge. Psychologists confirm this practice of pattern spotting reduces stress by anchoring the mind in present moment awareness, a technique Buddhist monks have used for centuries with mandala contemplation. For the digitally inclined, apps like Sacred Geometry turn smartphone screens into dynamic compasses that construct perfect Sri yantras or Metatron's cubes with finger swipes. Wearable tech now incorporates these principles. Two bracelets with embedded Fibonacci coils subtly interact with the body's electromagnetic field, while yoga mats printed with flower of life grids enhance proprioception during practice. The key isn't complexity, it's intentionality. Whether you're arranging crystals in a platonic solid formation or simply choosing a notebook with a hexagon pattern cover, you're participating in the same geometric dialogue that once directed the axes of pyramids and the curves of cathedrals. Nighttime offers its own geometric magic. Before sleep, try the Pythagorean practice of reviewing your day in geometric metaphors, visualizing challenges as cubes needing rotation, relationships as intersecting triangles, breakthroughs as sudden tessellations. Neuroscientists find this symbolic processing enhances memory consolidation and problem-solving during REM cycles. Or project a rotating dodecahedron, Plato's shape of the ether, onto your ceiling. Its 12 pentagonal faces have been shown to induce theta brainwaves associated with deep relaxation. The beauty of sacred geometry lies in its scalability. A single drawn circle can hold as much transformative potential as a stone circle spanning acres. When you align your morning coffee mug's position with the cardinal directions, or pause to admire how sunlight casts icosahedron-shaped shadows through a pergola, you're not just decorating life, you're decoding the universe's hidden syntax, one personal, perfectly proportioned moment at a time. From the pyramids to modern metropolises, sacred geometry has been the silent architect of human civilization. These unseen currents remind us that cities are more than concrete. They're living expressions of cosmic order. As we face the future, perhaps the answer to sustainable, harmonious living lies in rediscovering these ancient blueprints. The next time you walk through a city, look closer. The past's geometric whispers might still guide us forward. Stand at the base of a skyscraper, and you might feel dwarfed by steel and glass. But tilt your gaze upward, and you'll notice something uncanny. The building's setbacks and terraces often follow the same step-back patterns as Mayan temples, a design that stabilizes structures while mirroring nature's fractal growth. Cross a pedestrian plaza, and the benches might curve in logarithmic spirals, unconsciously soothing your nerves with the same proportions found in nautilus shells. Even the smartphone in your hand owes its sleekness to golden ratio design principles, proving that sacred geometry never vanished. It just evolved, hiding in plain sight beneath layers of modernity. This isn't nostalgia for a lost golden age. It's an invitation to recognize that the most enduring human innovations, from Gothic cathedrals to silicon chips, succeed when they align with the deep patterns woven into reality itself. When a Barcelona apartment block borrows its honeycomb facade from beehives, or when Singapore's urban planners use dendritic algorithms to mimic root systems, they're not just being clever. They're tapping into a timeless truth. The universe speaks in shapes, and those who listen build things that last. The challenges ahead, climate chaos, urban isolation, resource scarcity, demand more than technological fixes. They require us to rebuild our world with the wisdom encoded in Angkor Wat's celestial alignments and the Navajo's cardinal-oriented hogans. Imagine stormwater systems designed like the stepwells of Gujarat, where fractal staircases slow floods while creating communal gathering spaces. Picture neighborhoods arranged like the petals of a flower, where shared gardens bloom at harmonic intervals between homes. Envision metropolises that don't just tolerate nature, but emulate its geometry so thoroughly that parks, buildings, and transit systems flow together like organs in a living body. This isn't fantasy, it's already happening. From the biomimetic curves of Milan's Bosco Verticale to the solstice-aligned light installations in Toronto's financial district, a quiet revolution is unfolding. Architects armed with parametric software are rediscovering what medieval masons knew, that beauty and function arise from the same geometric roots. Ecologists partner with city planners to map urban forests using algorithms based on mycelium networks, the fungal internet linking trees in natural ecosystems. Even children's playgrounds now incorporate Fibonacci-inspired climbing structures, subtly training young minds to perceive the world's hidden order. The lesson is clear: sacred geometry isn't about esoteric symbolism or mystical dogma. It's a practical toolkit for designing spaces that nourish rather than deplete, connect rather than isolate. When we walk through cities built with these principles, our heart rates slow, our creativity sparks, and our sense of belonging deepens, not by accident, but because these shapes resonate with the very fabric of our biology and the physics of our planet. So as you step outside today, pause for a moment. Notice how sunlight filters through a wrought iron gate in hexagonal patterns. Observe the way shadows curve along a brick wall at golden hour. Feel the difference between standing in a sterile concrete canyon and a courtyard where arches frame the sky like celestial portals. The choice before us isn't between progress and tradition. It's between building in dissonance with nature's grammar or composing with it. The blueprints are there, etched in stone and star and stem, waiting for us to remember. If this journey through the hidden architecture of history has sparked your curiosity, share in the comments what sacred geometries have you noticed in your own city. And if you'd like to keep unraveling these mysteries with us, hit subscribe. The next chapter in humanity's story might just be written in the language of shapes we're only beginning to reclaim.